When we are looking at the prominence of detransition and the risks of legal gender recognition based on self-determination, it is important to be mindful of information from UK Gender Identity Clinic, where we had only 0.47% detransitions, so that's less than 0.5%. A 50-year long-time study from Sweden, where it was 2% of the participants that have expressed regret following gender-affirming surgery.
Actually, I feel like I'm being erased little by little. It's like they're trying to sweep an uncomfortable truth under the rug because they can't face it, because it's a truth that makes people angry. It's distressing for someone who has experienced something like that, to the point where today you have a lot of people suffering from transitions because it's not something simple.
We have stories and testimonials of these people that just gone through transition and got to the point where they just stopped and realized that it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think it's like stupid because there are lots of detransitioners. I know about like 20 women who are German speaking who are detransitioners, and I also know like international of people from Poland, from Czech Republic, from Italy, and then from all those English speaking countries. So there are a lot of detransitioners.
It's like you want to be blind. Yeah, I think it's just trying to ignore an issue that is clearly there.
Also the reasons when it comes to detransition or to regrets, because there is of course also social pressure and lack of support, which is often cited as the main reason, rather than really the feeling of having made a wrong decision.
No, that's not reality. I'm sorry, but today we're still living in a society where LGBT people are actually doing very well in our Western countries. They're very well protected, very well accepted. So when one says no, it means you were oppressed, it means you experienced transphobia. No, currently in our society, when someone dares to say something that goes against this somewhat trans, somewhat LGBT policy, they face harsh criticism, so I'm sorry, but no. We can't claim that someone who detransitioned did so because of state transphobia or because people around them were transphobic. No!
No, I actually didn't. I didn't experience any violence. For me, everything was fine. Just as I detransitioned, it was difficult to speak openly about it because then you're like the enemy for some trans activists, and it can be like really psychological challenging to have the issues with those people.
I don't really think that trans people that transition because of a violence or of a lack of support. I think that trans people have a lot of support. For me, it was really easier to transition than the transition. The transition, it was public, right? It was in public media and everywhere. So the hate from the trans community was huge.
It's just not true. I mean, it's such a simplistic answer to such a complicated thing. The whole issue is just way complicated than is usually shown in the media, but also especially by trans activists. So I feel like it's just a very kind of simplistic answer to change the narrative so that it still fits their agenda or their beliefs.
Conversion practices, that is, therapies, pseudo-scientific and fraudulent interventions that aim at changing the sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression of LGBTIQ persons. Taking different forms: psychotherapy, medical interventions, faith-based interventions of whatever kind, relying on different practices such as electroshocks, physical violence, hormone and drug treatment, or exorcism. That is why the UN, the Council of Europe, and the European Parliament have been calling member states to counter such unacceptable practices and ban them.
In my experience, about 80 to 90% of people who detransition were individuals who felt uncomfortable in their own skin and really struggled with puberty. Their evolution within their bodies, they have not learned to know themselves, they have not learned to discover themselves as individuals. Unfortunately, nowadays we rush into things way too quickly. The moment someone says, I feel uncomfortable in my body, they're told, that's because you're not in my body. When I was little, I didn't like dresses, I didn't like skirts, I didn't like anything that fit the stereotype of a girl, I didn't like it at all. So naturally, when I finished middle school and started high school, people told me, oh, that's because you're a boy trapped in a girl's body. No, it's just that I didn't fit into the typical girl stereotype. But I was still completely a girl.
So it started like with the mastectomy because I had like the surgery and I realized, okay, the surgery didn't help me anything. Now I just have like more bodily pain, but my psychological pain isn't like really better. So I already had like lots of doubts, and then I went back to the group and asked because of the pain I had and the mastectomy pain. And afterwards, they told me they sometimes also have mastectomy pain. So this was for me like a big lie. And then I decided to move out from Berlin to a small village to study there. And that for me helped a lot because Berlin for me was like really always stressful. And on the village, there was no stress anymore. And I realized I don't feel much sadness and everything. So I decided to stop also testosterone.
The main reason to the transition is the point in life when you just say to yourself that you cannot just mask yourself forever. You just need to accept yourself. You just cannot go through all the plastic surgeries and all the hormonal drugs just for nothing, right? For me especially, it was really depressing phase of my life because being trans for me was just trying to be myself, but the exact opposite of who I am already, right? I'm not a woman, I'm just a modified boy, right? I felt like I'm a fraud. I cannot be a woman. I'm not. I can present myself as one, but I will never be one. I will just never be. It's just not possible. It's just not. But yes, my mental state got worse, much worse, and that was one of the main reasons I did transition.
I think a lot of it is just part of growing up, honestly. Because when I started, I was late 18, 19. The treatment, they didn't really work and they didn't alleviate my distress. When I got older, I just, especially in your early 20s, you start to reflect on things like how you grew up, how, your parents, how that went. People that you've always had on a pedestal, you kind of start to break that down and you see things like everything is more nuanced, you start to reflect on a lot of things. So I guess that's what I did. And then I came to like insights that things that happened and how I actually felt and where that came from. And I started to understand that better. So I also started to understand more where these feelings came from that I wanted to be a woman.
There was a detransitioner from Belgium. She did research with 60 detransitioners for need and support, what detransitioners need as support needed. And all those detransitioners, they stated that the transition didn't help them. So they transitioned for psychological reason. But after the transition, they realized they still have the same psychological issues. Well, it didn't help. Yeah, it was no problem with the family. It was no problem with the work background. But it simply was like it was not the right solution for them.
I was so uncomfortable in my body and completely ill at ease, plus my autism wasn't identified back then. My mother didn't even know what autism really was. So on top of being weird, not fitting into any box, being autistic without knowing it, not having many friends, not fitting into social groups, plus the bullying, plus spending all my days online, on forums, on Tumblr back then, on Facebook, all these little elements lined people up side by side that led me to transition. Well, socially, I was never really able to transition because my mom kept saying no, no. And fortunately, I transitioned socially. Physically, besides surgeries, people would call me sir or say my little guy. I transitioned because of all these little factors, but I only managed to identify these elements after a long time. after certain decisive events in my life that allowed me to work on myself and ask, but why? Why was I actually so uncomfortable in my own skin? Going through this phase surrounded by this really toxic environment made me think, well, yeah, this is actually the solution, when in reality it wasn't at all.
The main reasons was that I was soft. I was just playing with hair or just nails or just makeup because I liked my mom stuff, right? I was just watching just the makeup tutorials and I liked fashion. I like to dance. I've never had male friends. I always had female friends. Then I just came out as gay when I was 16. And then I just started to date my first guy. I felt like myself. I felt like I found myself, that I'm gay and I can do whatever I want. But then I really tried to be a liberal because I thought that that's something that I should do. Because when you're a part of the LGBT community, you really try to accept all of them. I was really trying to just be liberal and just accept even the trans people and non-binary people and just really feminine and just really masculine people, and I was just so okay with it. And then I found videos on YouTube that just led me to think like, okay, I'm feminine and I'm depressed and I hate my body, so what should I do? And trans stories was just telling the same symptoms as I had, or just had, that they hate themselves, had depressions, were bullied, this stuff. And I thought that when I will transition, that these symptoms will go away and I will feel happy and I will be complete.
Well, I'm like more like a butch woman. I'm more like a masculine woman, and also like all my hobbies are like the male hobbies, so called. I'm studying like electrotechnical engineering, and before I did like a apprenticeship for being an electrician, like a house electrician. Yeah, it always was a bit difficult. Like in the school, for example, I grew up in Bavaria, which is a bit more conservative. There the pupils were like divided between females and males, and it wasn't like a social accepted to have like a male friends for a girl. And for me, that really got a big problem. Girls from the more upper class, they always told me like, I'm not behaving in the right way. I'm not moving in the right way. I should be more ladylike. And for me, that was like simply terrible. It was not my way of being. And also in my early teenage years, I realized I'm attracted also to women. And that really got me in a lot of trouble. And I guess these are the main reasons why I wanted to transition in the end, because I was like, if I hadn't been like also attracted to girls, I wouldn't have all those psychological issues that I later developed. So I maybe thought it would be like a solution to get better with my psychological status.
When I started identifying as trans, I was 16. I had a lot of problems accepting myself, my sexuality, but also just myself as a person, also my body, because puberty was changing my body, was doing all these things to my body that I hated, and I wanted to put a stop to it. I thought all these changes were disgusting. I felt I was really ugly. I was not really a popular kid in high school. I was bullied. I guess that's typical for boys of that age, that they just compete with each other all the time. And I did not do that. It felt like everywhere all the boys were doing it, and I had no idea how to escape that because I had no interest in that, and I just hated all of that. Also, I was gay, so I was not interested in girls at all. I mean, no one knew that, but so I was different. And of course, if you're different in such an environment, you're an easy target. A lot of people, especially the boys, were picking on me a lot of the time, and I just hated that. So I didn't really have a lot of close friends, especially not in high school. So I guess at the time I was just very lonely, and I think that it was mostly the loneliness that contributed to me wanting to be a woman.
No, people are not becoming more trans because there's a trend. Young people before used to commit suicides because they could not live their lives. They used to commit suicides because they were not accepted in society, because of people like the ECR who do not accept people who are different in this world.
Yes, completely. And not just by social media, I was also influenced by my friend group at the time because honestly, I never really had a friend group before. I have always dreamed of having a group of friends like all teens in middle school do. So when I got to high school and started having a group of friends, for me, it was a revolution. There was this influence from this friend group that was very different. And looking back, I think there were many autistic people among them, though none had been diagnosed. None of them were heterosexual or simply identified as a girl or boy. No, it was me saying I'm non-binary, I'm pansexual, I'm bisexual, etc. I knew nothing about any of this because my social media at the time was only focused on things I liked. Video games like Zelda or manga, romance manga specifically. I discovered all this entirely through this friend group, and gradually I thought to myself, this seems interesting, they seem to feel better in their bodies. So I started getting interested, and truly the more interested you got, the more social media would feed you suggestions like, check out this account, it's great, or look at this amazing image, especially on Tumblr, which was basically LGBT headquarters back then when I was in high school. And yes, it was this group that would say to me, are you sure you're like that? Are you sure? Look, you really do dress like a boy, though. At that time, I was just starting to discover myself as a woman. I was starting to wear dresses, tights, little boots, I had a handbag, and I liked myself. And I was thinking, wow, actually, I'm pretty. I look like the girls in the French movie LOL, which I watched a lot in middle school, and I thought, wow, so cool. But really, this group started saying to me, no, look, you can see it doesn't suit you. It's your mom who tells you to dress like that, which wasn't true at all. And I was so caught up in thinking, I finally have friends, I don't want to lose them. I thought, well, if they're my friends, they must only want what's best for me. I had this naive Care Bears view of life. For someone who is discovering it for the first time, let's be honest, young people are easily influenced since they know very little about the reality of our world. Someone who discovers and sees that there is a place on the internet where everyone appears benevolent and welcoming, 3/4 of them get fooled by this false impression. It's simply how things work in the online environment.
I thought, something is wrong in my life, something is wrong with me because this is happening to me, not to other people. So there must be something about myself. I never went to a therapist, but I diagnosed myself, by browsing the internet, trying to look for answers. Then at some day I found a trend that was a thing. And this was in 2014, 2015, when this whole explosion happened, really at the beginning. And then I found that and I thought, okay, this is it. On the internet, if you look at how do I know I'm trans, they provide you with a list. It's like a checklist. So I did that and I looked that up, and so many things I could just check. Like as a child, I always liked wearing dresses. I always liked makeup. And I'm talking about like a toddler, like 4 or 5 years old. With like role-playing games, I always wanted to have characters where I was a woman, like the mother or the aunt or the sister or whatever. If I think about it now, that's just, it's maybe not typical children behavior, but it's a child, It's very common. I've talked to a lot of gay men, and a lot of them, especially the older ones, they say they had the same thing. And a lot of them also say, if I was born your generation, if I was born nowadays, then I probably would have transitioned as a child.
It was heavily influenced by my girlfriend at the time, who was also trans. This whole transition was really influenced by this person. It was from the moment when she left me in such a violent way that I started to rediscover myself. I thought, no, actually, if I'm like this, it's only because I was dating her and she was influencing me every day. And once she was out of my life, and despite everything, I'm the one who eventually kicked her out of my life, all of that just disappeared.
Absolutely. I felt like I should transition, actually. It was not really about like thinking about it. It was really like I should do that because I'm the one, right? And even doctors were just telling me that I'm the perfect example of trans person. So I was really not doubting that at all. I thought that it's amazing step to do in life, but I was 100% influenced by social media.
I was living during this time in Berlin, and there were a lot of transitioning groups for FTMs there, so women to male transitioning. Usually they were like 10 years above me from their age, but they all were like masculine women transitioning to men. It were like my role models, yeah. So I didn't need like the online stuff. I didn't need any YouTube videos or Reddit or something. I had like the real people in front of me, and they all told me how great it is to have testosterone and how freeing it is to have no breasts anymore and to go to the beach without a top. And so I didn't have social media. I just had the people around me. And
online, nobody ever said, no, actually, it's not really changing sex, it's just cosmetic. What you'd see on forums or Tumblr was, yes, you'll change sex, you'll be liberated, you'll truly discover what it's like to be a man. And they'd say, doing this will feel amazing, you'll feel so much better in your body. They'd share names of the good doctors, in air quotes, who'd help you transition as quickly and easily as possible. Because otherwise, otherwise that doctor shows you a lot of things. I find it really transphobic, etc. There was always this kind of talk on forums or on Tumblr. Yes.
They did say to me that it's not the same as being born a woman, it's not these surgeries and stuff. They don't do miracles. So they did tell me that, but I feel like everything they said was on a very shallow level, and I knew it, and I told them like, yeah, I know that, but they never went to a much deeper level, and I think that's the main problem, at least in my case, that they also missed a lot of what I now think is red flags because they didn't go to that deeper level.
no, I think I never believed the story to really change the sex, but just to change the appearance for sure. I kind of believed the story like years before there were the butch lesbians, and now they shouldn't be butch lesbians anymore, but they should become men and then be together with their women, and then they're a heterosexual couple, and life would be so much easier. So this was like the main story.
They were telling me that, oh, you will be the beautiful girl that you always wanted to be, and your mother will have a beautiful daughter, and just this stuff. And they were just telling me that when I will transition, that I will be a woman. I was so believing in that ideology. They explained that the bottom surgery isn't the only thing I should or I could change on my life. They were telling me that the operation is not the solution for everything, which I knew. And they were telling me that I'm a woman, but I only have a man's body. It was not explained to me that I have man's body and I'm trying to achieve the woman's one, so I'm trying to modify it. They were telling me that I will be a woman, and I was just living with that I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. And then I just found out that it's just impossible.
The harm that the anti-gender rhetoric creates when it comes from medical professionals or from politicians. This is we know that this can lead to many suicides, and we don't want our young people to kill themselves. And they have the right to have a life like all of us. For the S&D group, it is gender affirmative healthcare is something which should be the rule in all health settings.
Very little. Very, very little. On the forums, there was never anything negative about transitioning or about the complete transition process. I'm talking medications, surgeries, all that. The only negative points mentioned were like, yeah, this treatment might be tough if you're already taking anxiety or depression meds. It was always framed as supposedly well-intentioned advice, like, if you're an anxious person, if you're depressed, if you're on Xanax or antidepressants, it's going to be a lot to handle, but it'll still free you in the end. Maybe you'll even be able to stop those other medications. The conversation always followed that pattern, so no.
I didn't had like practitioner speaking to me about that stuff, because I simply went to one practitioner, which one trans man told me to go to, and he simply gave me testosterone. So he first made a blood test, and then he asked me if I knew all the consequences, and I simply said yes, and then I got the testosterone. So I never had like this talk if I really changed sex or not. No, I didn't have this.
They told me that I shouldn't be worried about that, because they were really saying to me a lot of times, like, oh, don't worry about that, you'll pass, you know, you're gonna look like a woman, that's gonna be fine, don't worry about that. Yeah, so then I started thinking, okay, I started getting these really unrealistic expectations that hormones would fix all this for me, which of course it didn't.
They were telling me that the bottom surgery, or just the SRS, that it's an amazing step in my life, and that it's just amazing, and I just cannot make a wrong choice because it's amazing. And they were not telling me that I will be more depressed, or that just I will be more likely suicidal, or just something like that. They just didn't tell me. They just told me that I will be complete. And they were just telling me that the hormones doesn't have any side effects, and that is just completely safe, and it's safe for kids and for old people and just for everyone. It's just all safe because the doctors said so, right? They only told me that I need to dilate for like a year. They just told me that they doesn't have any informations about unsuccessful surgeries. So they're all successful, everything is great. So now they were just telling me that everything is gonna be okay, and everything is okay, and that I will be just a beautiful woman and it doesn't have any side effects.
For me, it's like difficult, because when I had like the problems, the issues with the pain after the mastectomy, and I still have it on some days, I talk like openly about it, because I think it's important to know about it to make the decision if you want to have a surgery or not. And that for me was like really a bit like lying in one other's face when you don't talk truly about what happened to you, which are the negative sides. And yes, this is the thing I really didn't like with the group.
They definitely lied to me, but I think there were a lot of things that I should have known that they didn't communicate with me. Then they told me afterwards, when I already made the decision to detransition, they told me that they were concerned that self-acceptance for me was a big issue, that I struggled with that. And when I hear that, I couldn't believe it, because I'm like, how can you, a teenager who you realize has a lot of issues with self-acceptance, how can you let them go on, this path? To me, it sounds ridiculous.
Yes, of course, I was lied. And first, I was just really mad, I was just mad at everyone. I was just feeling like my life is ruined because of them, because I just believed in something for 6 years, and I found out that I was really lied to.
The fight for the trans community to not be stamped as mentally ill, leading to exclusion and stigma, has been long and ongoing. And still, the community is facing more and more backlashes in many member states, but also worldwide. And this is fed by disinformation about the trans community. It's hateful comments that we're seeing everywhere, and that are unfortunately also repeated in political arenas and also in this house. I think we can all agree that everyone deserves proper healthcare, no matter their background, income, or gender identity. And that's why I'm very happy we are having this discussion here today. And we know that just accessing proper healthcare can already be challenging, but for the transgender and non-binary community, there are even more hurdles, not to mention very long waiting lists. You should not have to wait for years to get trans-specific healthcare, and it should not have to cost you a fortune to be able to be yourself.
Yes, I regret. I was lucky not to transition physically or take medications. No mastectomy or anything like that. I had this fortune thanks to my parents, who stepped in and said, no, actually, you're not going beyond this point. But yes, I still have regrets. If one day someone gives me a button and says, you can erase this from your life and have a normal adolescence, I would press the button.
Yeah. definitely. I feel I kind of got locked in because I had this diagnosis.
Yeah, I regret the mastectomy, but for me, like mastectomy was like a bit traumatizing for sure, because I also had like a after bleeding, so it was like, yeah, terrible.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. I lost almost all of my sensation. I cannot have just a normal sex again. I just couldn't study. I will never have kids, and I will never have just the normal life. It will be always more complicated only because I just believed that something like this can help me.
What made me wake up, it was a suicide attempt because I was so miserable in my own body. Back then, I truly felt like an empty shell. I had created this fake appearance and personality, and I'd become someone completely opposite to who I really was deep down.
I only did my facial feminization surgery. I realized for a long time that after these hormones, I had not gotten better mentally. But then I had the surgery, and I took it because I thought that I needed to go further in order to actually become happy. I thought I was still unhappy because I hadn't gone far enough. So then I did it. And then after that, I realized that I wasn't happy at all. Things hadn't improved, basically. Also because with the surgery, also I had a lot of complications and issues. At that point, I kind of started to realize, okay, so when does it get better? You know, how far do I need to go in order for it to get better, and what if it's gonna get worse? And that was around the same time when I started to reflect on how I grew up in my past and how I felt and who I actually am and all those things. So that I think that combined is what eventually made me realize that I should not have done this.
After the year, I just got completely depressed, and I was so suicidal. I was depressed even before, but in the transition, I got more depressed, like every day, and just heavy depressions, and I just couldn't even just get up out of bed or just normal study or just normal work or just do just normal things. It was not really possible for me, and my mental state gone from bad to worse.
Also, we are very vocal when it comes to defending sex and relationship education, which is in the UN Convention of Children's Rights. Every child has the right of age-adapted, comprehensive sexual education, and this makes them resistant. And they when they hear about other possibilities, they know that they are not sick and that they are normal, that they are just different.
Right now, there are lots of young lesbians and young bisexual women, and also like gay men who are transitioning, who actually have a problem with internalized homophobia. And it's actually nowadays a new form of conversion therapy. And it's like really important to open your eyes and look at this problem, because there are all those bills against conversion therapy, but all those young women, they are trying to change their sex to be a heterosexual couple. It's not good for the gay community, and it's like really hurting the future gay community. And when you mean it honestly with protecting gays and young gays for sure, then you should open your eyes and look at this problem.
I was raised in a family where homosexuality is completely banned. That is just something completely just not normal. And then when I found out just trans people, I felt more normal, right? Because I felt just like I'm a woman and I'm attracted to men, so I'm just a normal, just heterosexual woman. Right now, for me, it's just really difficult to just accept my sexuality.
I had a very hard time accepting that I was gay. I didn't want to be gay. I had a very hard time accepting, first of all, my own sexuality, but also just me as a person. I had no self-esteem. I had very little confidence. So there were a lot of factors that contributed to me wanting to transition. In the end, I thought if I transitioned, it would fix a lot of my issues.
I've never gone to see a doctor, clearly, for this sort of thing, since my parents would just give me a flat-out no, really a direct no.
I can imagine some parents maybe thinking, okay, well, we better not talk about this. I think it's very important also to talk to the parents, alone, but I don't think, at least in my case, they didn't do that. And I know for more people that they don't do that. Me being a teenager, of course, I'm not going to listen to my parents, because all the therapists and all the, supposed professionals, they all complied, they all agreed, they all confirmed and affirmed my trans identity. So then if my mother tried to go against that, it would just make me angry, because I would have this feeling like, all these people they are the professionals and they confirm it, and then you don't, but what do you know? It just made me angry. So there was not much my mother could do, especially by basically saying that she was transphobic and didn't want a trans child. They just undermine her authority as a mother, as a parent. So she was just trying to protect me, which every parent does, right?
We also recognize, of course, the realities of trans, non-binary, intersex, and queer people. We indeed push for self-determination and also access to health. We have set up a subgroup for LGBTIQ equality within the high-level group that brings together member states. We also have facilitated projects like Health for LGBTI people, and the idea there is that we want to set standards of health.
It's fantastic that we have a Commissioner for Equality, the first time in the European Union, because Commissioner President von der Leyen says we have to thrive towards a union of equality, and your Commissioner and you working into this direction, and it's very good to have allies in the Commission working on this issue.
You're young, you still have your whole life ahead of you to discover and explore new things. Enjoy the present moment rather than overthinking. Live for yourself as a person, embrace who you are. If you're someone with a strong personality, then own it. But if there are people who love you, who truly love you despite all the stupid things you might do, and they say to you, listen, I think you're going too far here, pay attention to them. Yeah, live for yourself and not for others, read whatever books you want, but don't watch stuff that's not meant for your age, that's not recommended for you, because trust me, there's a reason for that. Don't live for social media, don't live for TV, live to become the best version of yourself rather than trying to be the best version of yourself for others. Because that's what's happening right now. These days, all young people want to be the best version in other people's eyes and not in their own. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the best person for my ex, for my group of friends. And in the end, I got lost and destroyed myself.
In the end, what I want to say is that, be patient, give yourself time to grow up. It will be different, especially when you get older. People around you will get older as well, and the environment will not be so toxic anymore. As people get older, they will also be more tolerant of differences. It's just really middle school, high school environments, especially for kids that are different and vulnerable, are just not good environments. So I would say just be patient, just get through this and it will get better, I promise.
When you get bullied at school, you should change the school when it doesn't get better. And also when they tell you all the time, like you're behaving the wrong way, you're not much woman-like or something, you simply should change like your surrounding. Because for me, like really the school wasn't good. I think another school form would have been better, and it would have helped me to be more psychological stable. And then the trans story in the end wouldn't have got me so easily.
I want to say that it's completely normal to just be different. When someone just tell you that you're not that you're supposed to be, from their point of view, you're just who you are. Any plastic surgeries will not help with the mental state. If someone just told me when I was just 16 or just 17 that there's nothing wrong with me, it would really help me. And I think that when someone just feel like they could be trans, I always recommend visiting a psychologist, but a good one, right? Not that just a liberal one, but a good one. Yeah, so just be yourself and don't just change everything about yourself to just be happy, because it doesn't work.